Welcome back to part 3 of this Python tutorial. In this part 3, we're looking particularly at the use of variables, which is very important when it comes to different programming languages. What I want you to know is that a variable is simply a container or placeholder or something that holds a value, right? So you might have used variables if you're in secondary school. You've spoken about variables in algebra, where they talk about x and y and z and so forth. So think of a variable as something that holds a value. So let's say I have my name. I can assign my name, Marcel Palma, to a variable called x. I can assign a number to a variable called y, right? And so you can assign different values to a variable, and then you can do something with that variable. You can remember in our Excel tutorials that we did, we spoke about each cell being somewhat of a variable where you can assign a value to a variable, right? So let me show you how we use variables in Python. So remember now, and this was the last program we did, we looked at the print statement, we looked at how to save files. Now we want to look at the use of variables. So I'm just going to continue on the same program. We could have a print statement up top just so I can see something. So I'll call this my variable program. So I'll print out my variable program on the screen. If we want it, I will mention we can assign variable using names. I will talk about the names in a few. I can say x is equal to, I'll put a double quotation, to my name, and you can use your name in this case, and y is equal to some number. Now notice for the number I didn't use any double quotes, right? Because it's going to be of a different data type, and we'll get a chance to talk about data type in a few. So if I wanted to print what these values are holding, I can say, all right, let's print out what x is holding as a variable. And notice I did not put any double quotes, and print out what y is holding as a variable. So very quickly again, we're able to use a print statement to print some sort of text to the screen. We are able to assign a value to a particular text, and if we assign a number, we don't use any quotes, right? And then print x and y. So if we run this program, notice what it does. It says, and this is our running program, it says my variable program, which is I told the computer to print out that word or print out those sets of words, and I assign the name Marcel Palma to x. I assign the number 4 to y, and so it was able then to print out x, which it did here, and it printed out y, which it did here, right? So if I wanted to print x again, I could say print x again, and when I run it, notice it prints x, it prints y, and it prints x again, right? Right? So we're able to then print whatever value the variable is holding, and so whatever assignment I did here would be stored in x, whatever assignment I did here would be stored in y. All right, when it comes to variable types, and maybe we should look at the commenting in this section, but I particularly want to make it short so we can look at variables. When it comes to variable names, right? And I probably should give you a list of what we can't use in names. So while you can use a longer word in a name, say for example, if I didn't want to call this x and I want to call this name, which makes sense, right? I can then print name here as the variable name, and so when I print it, it'll give me the name that it is storing. So the variable name is more meaningful here because it represents what the value is, right? So some things you don't want to use in a variable name. You don't want your variable to start with a number. That's an illegal operation. You don't want to place a slash within your variable. So like for example, I wouldn't put here, and these are wrong variable names, I wouldn't put names dash something, right? That's wrong. I wouldn't start my variable with a number. That's wrong. And I wouldn't put a space in my variable name. That's wrong, right? So you want to be careful when you're naming your variables to make sure that you're using the right syntax required by the Python language. And note that with variables in Python, there is no need for you to declare variables like you've done in other programming languages. For example, Pascal, you need to declare variables. I think in C++ you need to declare variables also. What Python does is that it declares the variable on the fly for you. So as soon as you assign a value to the variable, Python then determines the data type. You can also change between data types, and we'll take a look at how you change from one data type to the other in our next tutorial, right? So in this case then, just so I can show you a practical example, let's say I am, and I'll use 4, and let's do another variable called z is equal to, let's say 6, right? Let's say I want to tell the computer to print out the answer for y plus z. So when I run this now, notice it prints my name and it prints the value or the answer for y plus z, which is 4 plus 6, which is 10. So if I were to change this to, let's say 60, and I run it, it should give me 64. So you can see the inner working of a calculator there. It's storing values to a variable, and it's doing some sort of processing, and it's printing out the answer. Now remember that I can also assign this answer to another variable. So let's look at that while we're here. So let's say I'm saying now, take this variable called answer and give the value of x plus, oh sorry, y plus z. I can't add a text, right? So y plus z, and I can print answer, right? So the variable is ans. Oh, it's saying it's a keyword. Let me try it still. So when I print it, there it compiles, it prints out the answer. So we essentially stored values into a variable, and we are able to store it into a final variable called answer and establish some sort of formula and then print out the variable itself. So that's it for creating variables. See you in the next tutorial.